Hello, everyone. This is Manuel Alier for Offchain Podcast. This project is a collaboration between myself and my partner, Alex Romero. And with this project, we hope to discuss blockchain technology, economics, philosophy, history, politics, and everything else related to the fourth industrial revolution. We're very excited to get this going, so let's get started.
Here we are. This is the early stages of podcast Off Chain, and we're this is Manny and I'm Alex, and
Hello.
each of us will go ahead and we'll introduce ourselves at a later time. We'll just go ahead and get into the nitty gritty of what it is that we're doing here, and basically the podcast has been developed as a byproduct of a project that Manny and myself are working on, which is UCAT.io. It is a education learning management system built on a blockchain that ultimately will end up paying the participants of the ecosystem for participating. And instead of you having to go to school and pay to go to school, you will be getting paid to learn. So that's kind of like the overall gist of it. There's a whole lot more complexity that goes to it, but that's part of the details. That's why we're doing this, because in order for you to understand how we got there, there's a lot of learning that needs to happen just to be able to get to the understanding of where we're at. And Manny, I don't know if you want to throw in some stuff there. And
Yeah. Well, it's important to realize that education's our focus. Like right now, we have a lot more people coming into crypto space, and if we are going to build something of value, like education needs to be the center of what happens in the crypto space. And coincidentally, UCAT is the center of education.
I love
So,
you. I love you.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to get back to basics and start getting our ideas across. It's great that we've seen a lot of people come into the space, but there are a few things that trouble with that. It's like there's been a lot more scams involved and a lot of meme coins that are mostly pump and dumps.
Right.
And what we like to focus on is value. It's like there's a lot of value to be created in the crypto space, and also like bridging the gap between traditional finance and crypto. It's like our main focus. So yeah, we're excited to get everything going.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that and one of the things and the biggest thing that kind of motivated us to do this whole thing is the more that Manny and myself have conversations with people just in the regular day-to-day interactions, Manny and myself have already discussed just how disconnected people are from traditional finance.
Mhm.
So if you don't understand traditional finance, you're not going to get crypto.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's some fundamentals that you kind of have to understand in order for you to understand where the crypto market is going, where it's been, and what its current state is now.
Yeah. And a lot of that for me, it's like a lot of that is by design. Like you have middlemen of you don't have middlemen of value, you have middlemen of necessity. It's like people have, they're separated from their finances on purpose. It's like if they don't understand it, then there's always someone that can take advantage of that. So it's
Right.
like having an understanding of even traditional finance and how that relates to crypto, it can free you and like give you more control over, how you handle your financial life. So yeah.
Absolutely. And another thing, a quick disclaimer, this is not financial advice. We're just merely offering some insight information to what it is that we have discovered in our journey in life.
Yeah.
And also, we will never actually ask you to invest in anything, or we'll never reach out to you because there's a lot of scammers out there.
Yeah.
We don't have that problem yet, but I'm pretty sure that it's not that far around the corner, simply because it kind of already started happening to me on a personal level. But I'm not sure if it has happened to you yet, Manny.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty kind of aware of a lot of the scams going around. It's like I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and I kind of see when things, I read comments, so I see when people try to take advantage of people's kind of credibility within the space.
Yeah,
But yeah, me personally, that's kind of good segue to kind of how I approach like investing. Like I don't really see myself, kind of recommending coins, or even talking about price much. Like I really want to focus on kind of researching technology and kind of suggesting, which breaking down like what coins are good, what coins are bad, you know, or what ecosystems are good. I think like me and Alex talked before about kind of doing like reviewing white papers because we feel like that's important. You know, it's there's a lot of bad actors out there, but there's also a lot of like developers who are genuine, you know, good and want to see the world thrive. You know, it's there's a lot that we can build. So
Yeah, and there's also a lot that have put in a tremendous amount of work that aren't even acknowledged or is very little about. Um, and because of that, you don't really know what to expect, what the outlook on performance is going to be for the future. And some of these projects, actually, there's a reason why they don't really cover a lot of these really um, what I would call transformative projects, or like really the projects that are really going to make change are the ones you're going to least hear about in the media.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
those are the ones that are being pocketed, because those are the ones that are make the most money in the long term. And when, this is what I would call like a game of musical chairs. The music is playing right now, and the moment that the music stops, whoever's left without a chair is going to be out.
Yeah,
And so for the most part, the really big projects, the ones that are being heavily invested into by institutions, obviously those are going to thrive. And the little ones that are going to be probably picked off or consolidated and maybe even merged into other bigger projects, those are yet to be seen. We don't know which ones those are going to be yet.
exactly. Yeah, it's like you know, I like you know developers that show instead of you know or do instead of say. You know, so it's yeah, like in you know like personally like I right now I'm hearing a lot about Shib even from my family. So
From
it's
what?
like
About what?
Shiba Inu,
Oh, Shiba
Shiba
Inu. Yeah.
coin. Yeah,
Go fucking power. You see what it did today?
yeah, definitely.
Although granted, I personally would never make a recommendation to somebody to
Yeah,
say the Shiba. That's a personal risk that I take. So I do have some holdings in Shiba,
yeah,
but man, I'm happy that today it pounced, because it took off about 30% today.
definitely. Yeah, it's like I get it. I get why people invest in it, but like for me, it's like people are talking saying the same thing about Doge. You know, it's like it's another iteration, and yeah, it's like you know I think one thing we can talk about is like how to you know not give them general investment advice, but like just knowing that there's cycles. You know, it's like you know a couple months ago it was Doge, and now it's kind of stagnated, and I feel like you know this is same thing is going to happen to Shiba Inu. So yeah,
Yeah.
so just be
Well,
careful out there.
but to
That
that, I'll say that Doge is based on Bitcoin,
yeah,
right? So Bitcoin cycle is, even though Bitcoin's looks like it's about to go parabolic,
mhm,
based on the recent movements. But so if Bitcoin performs, Doge is naturally going to perform with it,
yeah,
uh, just because they're based on the same protocol.
definitely.
Uh, so now we run into the scenario where ETH is hitting ATH.
Mhm,
ETH is like 42, 43 around there.
yeah,
Uh, at the time of recording, I think it's back down to like about 41 right now. Um, but Shiba Inu is based on ETH. So if ETH rallies, then Shiba's going to rally with it.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's if you would agree or not, but
Yeah, I think so. But like for me, it's you know I always worry when you know people in my family are starting to you know people you know recommend or talk about you know certain coins because like you know me I've been researching and I've been into crypto for a long time and like I generally have a good idea of like how things work and how the technology is built. But when the general public starts talking about it, that's usually when you know should worry. You know.
right, that's right around the corner is where the rug pulls come.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for the most part, I think you're absolutely right about that. I think there is a rug pull right around the corner, because we just closed out Q3. They just extended the debt ceiling. That's a really big topic of conversation, which we should probably touch upon.
Yeah.
Um, and because of that, like whatever we're experiencing between now and December, when they reconvene to decide on the debt ceiling,
Hmm.
I would almost count that as like a euphoric, like whatever happens now, I wouldn't even count that as a normal market cycle, because it
Yeah.
technically shouldn't even be happening. Like
Hmm.
with the pending debt ceiling and everything like that, we should have had a collapse by the 16th of October,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
saying,
like yeah, without getting too much into like my personal investments, like I'm basically kind of holding back, you know, like I see people making money on these different meme coins, but like it's kind of like the moment where it's, anything can happen. So, I think like, yeah, you're right. Like we kind of have to wait until December to really know like what direction things are going. There's a lot of like, things happening in the global economy right now, with like electricity shortages in China and, gas shortages in England and, potential like
Yeah,
different
and
events in the US, like
I'm
logistically, like it's,
I'm glad you brought all that up because actually, you know, I, I've I've actually come across a few people that work in some of these industries,
mhm,
and aside from this, like doing all this stuff, I do drive Lyft on the side, and I'll meet people that way and kind of like get their take on things that are happening.
yeah.
And I recently actually picked up a longshoreman off the Long Beach Pier, and it's so weird because I really didn't ask for this like kind of information, but he was like,
Yeah.
but he was just kind of like he was feeling some sort of way. He just started telling me this stuff, and he was telling me like, if you see trucks backed up along the harbor, he's telling me that these trucks are backed up pretty much for no reason. Like
Mhm.
it's almost like they're being told not to do work by
Yeah.
their because the longshoremen all work in a union,
Yeah.
and so the problem that the guy was telling me was he's like, if some people do the job as they're supposed to and they outperform the others that are not doing the work, then the people that are not performing up to standard start looking bad, and then it causes problems between the colleagues amongst themselves.
Mhm.
So things will happen where like people go and they'll cut your brake lines, they'll cut your lines on your trailer,
Yeah.
and maybe even get into fights. Like, granted, I would never think that that would be the case, but yeah, he says it's getting down to like a violent stage where the unions are telling people to kind of like lay down and not really do much,
Yeah.
and or go at a minimal pace, and all that stuff is backing up the ports and backing everything up. So, and he says that everything is automated, so you don't really have to have those long lines of those trucks, but
Yeah.
he's confused as to why they're even doing it. And so we got down to the topic of, the only thing that he could think of, and I could think of, was that it's a political thing, that it's being sabotaged for a reason.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
uh,
Well, for me, like my opinion on it is, it's kind of like a once in a probably generation moment for them to try like negotiate for better wages or use their leverage. When things are kind of like on shaky ground. It's like um, they can use their leverage to force companies to increase their wages or maybe benefits or better working conditions. I know that recently they passed a bill that allows the Port of LA to operate 24/7. So you can move cargo when the roads aren't really filled and just but yeah, but that's all good. But like if the drivers in the union are trying to make slow things down, then that's not really effective. Um, but yeah, it's like I get why the union would want to use their leverage to increase wages. It's like this last during the pandemic, um, I don't know the exact number, but we printed up an ungodly amount of money. So that
yeah,
kind of leads
yeah,
into why there's potential for another Bitcoin rally. But like with the inflation that's happening, like I do also worry that inflationary prices on actual goods might kind of blunt the potential for a rally.
right. And so we hit a really interesting point, which is we do have the inflation kind of looming. It's in the background. We haven't been, although we're starting to see the effects of it with gas prices and with the cost of goods in the supermarkets going up gradually. Like,
Mhm.
it's pretty soon it's going to be noticeable everywhere.
Yeah.
Uh, and and so one of the things that I find really interesting is that Kathy Wood was actually talking about a deflationary period, not inflationary.
Mhm.
Uh, her take on it was that because we hit this point of we were producing at a massive scale, then the pandemic hit where we shut down almost like dead stop whatever production lines were running. All of that created an overstock of supply of goods that now they've those supply of goods have slowly circulated around, the planet where they need to go. And now, as when those things slow down, guess what happens too? The logistics, the supply chain slows down because it has to meet the demand that's current. And so as we go and we try and turn up the gas and try and turn up the heat on supply chain, now you're it's like taking, if you're ever driving a car and you're driving kind of fast and you take the gas off and you try and hit the gas hard, it kind of chokes the engine out a little bit. It kind of creates a like a little like a thrust, but because it you're pulling back before you're launching forward.
Yeah.
The same thing happens with our economy, right?
Yeah. Gas brake dip.
Gas dip. There you go. So we're in that pullback period, and so now with that opening things up and everyone's starting to go back out shopping, it's now causing the supply chain to speed back up, but we have to catch up to it.
Yeah. And I think maybe one of the other factors too is that like the economy is already retooled in a lot of ways, like right now I'm in Oakland, and just one city over in San Francisco, like a lot of the tech workers haven't come back yet. So that's a lot of, I used to work in kind of different services like Postmates and TaskRabbit, and a lot of my business was in downtown for a lot of these companies. And so now I can imagine that like, you're not having like the office open up and having, like all these, automated desks and, lighting and construction crews to retool the office. And yeah, so it's like, I think like there's different products that might be in overabundance and others that are, people realize you don't need, and there's other ones you do need, I think one, I remember seeing that during the pandemic, like a lot of the stimulus money went to like DIY projects, so we see like a huge like inflationary pressure on and shortages of, like lumber and other like tools and that type of thing, and we still have a problem with, getting electronic goods into the country. So I think everything's adjusting. Yeah.
That's probably because we get most of 90%, if not more, of our electronics from China. So we know that's happening.
Yeah, and it's good. It's interesting that you mentioned that, and when it comes to supply chain, because like I don't, still haven't really seen like how like China's recent, banning of crypto has affected like the mining market, because like I know mining, generally, if I don't know the exact mechanism of it, but we know that it affects, the price of Bitcoin. So the fact that China owns, most all patents for mining rigs, we still haven't really seen like how that really has affected, mining in general,
Well, I mean, and that's great. Let's talk about mining.
Sure.
Mining is also something that we have come to find out is inefficient, and it's, although it works, and it was a great vision for how to create a sense of security for a network, network. Since then, since Satoshi Nakamoto came out with that consensus algorithm, or that consensus mechanism, we have since discovered that there's other forms of mining that are more efficient and more practical. And so as we have discovered that, and the rest of the world discovers that, Bitcoin is probably going to continue being a great store of value, but that's probably, from what Manny and myself were discussing before, we at least I feel that it's going to be a as good as a doorstop, to figuratively speaking, that it'll be the modern day equivalent of buying a paper stock in gold, and it as a commodity in paper. You'll never actually be able to collect on it because it's digital. It doesn't really exist. But then again, nothing really exists right now. But we're going off topic.
Definitely. No, it's good to bring it up, because like we can, from the beginning, let people know that we're not Bitcoin maximalists at all. We're actually, I probably haven't owned Bitcoin since 2015. So yeah, because I'm generally like into crypto for smart contracts and what you could build on the blockchain. Ability to decentralization is really important to like my philosophy when it comes to crypto. So
and that's and decentralization is something that is super important. Right now, one of the things that a lot of people really don't understand is even how our current financial system works with regards to central banks. a lot of people don't realize that the only way that these things exist, these we call dollars,
Yeah.
is our government has decided that they wanted to borrow, that they borrowed this from a private organization they call central bank,
Mhm.
and they basically put that debt on the backs of American paying tax dollars.
Yeah. Taxpayers.
American taxpayers, yes.
Yeah.
So understanding those things is very important, because when you understand where the source of value
Mhm.
is coming from, then you can begin to question the fundamentals of where that value comes from, and you could question, is the value really there? And then you could question, am I getting the value that I'm putting out? And then you
Yeah.
start to make assessments on all of your interactions with everything where money is involved, which
Mhm.
is every aspect of your life. And
Yeah.
then that's kind of where we're at now. A lot of people have been starting to really kind of do self inventory and seeing if the things that they valued at one point are really worth what they thought they were worth
Mhm.
yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're kind of getting into like what what UCAT is, and how we've kind of what we built or we want to see. It's it is important to discuss value and how because like the previous economy, um, like Alex mentioned, it's like like where the value is and where it's going and how it relates to you. Like I really feel that like most of that value was kind of there's always a middleman. There's always someone taking some value away from you, and a lot of that's a product of your own work. It's like of course you have to like interact with people. That's what economy is. But like when the systems aren't fair, then then there's a lot of inefficiency. It's like, and there's a lot of extra work you have to do in order to get that value. It's like, and it's
Right.
yeah,
And that kind of brings us forward into what the fourth industrial revolution is, right? So
yeah.
as things become more integrated and more connected, because the IoT space will allow us to do that uh, through IoT,
Mhm.
and then we'll be able to, at that point, once we're able to over time measure these analytics and this data, we can, at some point in the future, not today, not tomorrow, at some point in the future, we believe that we'll be able to actually measure the value of everyone's interactions,
Mhm.
plus or value to society, based on just those data points, on those metrics,
Yeah,
on all your interactions between people, between places, and between things, animate or inanimate objects, doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah. It's I think we discussed this earlier. Like one good example of this is I have I follow a lot of different people. I watch not even just crypto influencers, but people in the streaming space, and it's interesting seeing people's perspective on crypto. So like people, I watch like Magic the Gathering streams, and they're talking about crypto. So it's like, and seeing from the general public, like what they see about crypto, it is kind of like jarring to see that something that didn't exist last week can now be worth over $1 billion. In the current iteration of where crypto is, like I kind of see that as a bad thing as well. You don't really create anything of real value, but people are just trying to jump in to make, quick dollar. But like what we envision for the future, like value can be created out of anywhere if it actually provides value to the economy or to others or the general ecosystems that we agree upon. Because previously a lot of that value in the traditional finance is basically in the pyramid. It's all going up, so and we don't actually see the benefits of the value that we create. And that kind of relates to like what you said about the truckers and the union. It's like they're not getting what they really should be getting when it comes to their value within the economy. Like if they all decide to not even drive, everything falls apart.
We're screwed.
Yeah. So at the very least, they should be able to afford to live in a house, to have health care, to have their kids, educated, and so it's value. It's really important. Yeah, I know I'm wearing red. I'm not exactly a communist, but yeah, but we should be able to, be in control of our life and to have more control over the value that we create. So that's like generally what the philosophy behind UCAT. Like it's a very small part of it. I think over time we'll kind of go over like what more is involved in it, but
Right.
yeah, I think like it's a good start, for this first episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we gave a tremendous amount of knowledge, of
Mhm.
information, of a little bit of the backstory on where we're at. And I think that we're gonna have to take this real slow, because as it is, um, the regular person has a really hard time keeping up with this.
Mhm.
And so for those that haven't even come across, like, there's still people to this day telling me like, I don't know what Bitcoin is.
Yeah,
And like, I feel terrible, because like those people, like, they just don't realize like how important it is to even get um start looking into it, because this is the future. Like, there's no going back.
yeah,
like
yeah,
like we've already started that catalyst. Like, there's no way that they've already jump started this, and that they're going to go back to like, oh, we're just not going to use this technology, because
yeah,
it's not going to happen.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah. I think I think the previous, live stream we did. Yeah, I mentioned that, often I tell people because they always come to me with, the latest shitcoin, like so I have to jump in right now. It's like, no, just step back, like calm down, like don't worry, like it's gonna be around for a long time. Like, you should really look into what you're investing in, and if someone's telling you to jump in now or you're gonna miss out, like they're lying to you. They want to influence you in a negative way. So it's
Right,
like
right.
before you even invest, I would say learn everything you can about, what you're investing in. Like I started my career in finance, and one of the reasons I did that is because I wanted to raise money for my education. And so in order to do that, if my goal was money, so I needed to learn everything about money, and I did. So it's if your goal is to make money in crypto, it makes sense to, study and, see the pitfalls. Everyone's seeing like the people who are 100xing right now, making a great amount of money, on Facebook saying, "Oh, I made, all this money on NFTs," but you don't see the person that lost everything because they're not very, proud of that. So, and just
No,
know that that's out there, and but know also that crypto isn't going away. If you take your time and research and learn, like there's a lot of opportunities out there.
absolutely. And if there's any person out there that's been in the crypto game as long as Manny and myself have, and they tell you they've never been wrecked, they're a liar.
Yeah,
Because
I get wrecked
every
on a regular basis.
we get wrecked regularly, and it's
Yeah,
okay to make up for it on making smarter trades that are not emotionally driven.
yeah,
And that's where, like, when you do that long enough, you start to learn the cycles, right?
mhm,
You start
yeah,
to learn the cycles, and then you start to learn that regardless of what your emotions tell you, if you stick to the science, if you stick to the cycles, you'll make money in crypto.
mhm,
You're not going to make money in crypto by listening to other people that have never done anything
yeah,
with it.
yeah.
It's just not.
It's yeah, an example that I said like, when Elon was on SNL, I kind of felt like, oh, this is it. This is when it's gonna top out and drop. And that's kind of feel like right now with Shiba Inu. It's like there's certain people that when they talk about it, I'm like, oh, now everyone knows about it, and the
Right,
show might be over. I guess it might, still continue up, but like right at
right.
this point, like I would say, caution about it.
Absolutely. And I would say, as we go into the end of the year,
Mhm.
uh, I'm personally issuing a market watch between now and mid-December
Yeah.
for basically a market crash.
Mhm.
I'm calling that. And I'd say for people, like, if you're actively trading now, find a position, be happy with it. You may want to jump out soon, get in the sidelines, and just wait for the dust to settle.
Yeah.
Uh, or you're gonna join the rest of us getting wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, like right now, it's like basically like, people that I know in my life who, I kind of advise sometimes. It's like there's no shame in making 8% on DeFi with the stablecoin. So there's still opportunities even in a down market. And
Absolutely.
actually, that's one thing I think moving forward, it's like bull markets don't last forever. So maybe with this podcast and even in our personal, YouTube videos or YouTube accounts, like I really want to kind of go over like kind of safe investments for the long term. Um,
And we
yeah,
could deep over a couple of those for now, and maybe not get into too much detail, but maybe just outline a couple projects that you and
mhm,
I like have some long term upward potential, and then we can actually even follow up with a podcast to explain why we feel whatever our calls are.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so so on my behalf, like I'm a very big supporter of the Avalanche blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even say his name, God forbid, like God, forgive me. And he's the professor Emin Guerrero. I don't even know. He knows who he is.
Yeah.
Amazing work. I mean, he comes from an academic background. He actually came out of he's a professor of computer science at Cornell University, and basically he was one of the guys that said, you know, for all you complainers basically out there crying about what things could be done differently, instead of complaining and crying about it, why don't you do something? And so he just got tired of hearing all the people crying and said, you know, fine. He retired from teaching and he went back into the field to fix the problems that everyone else is complaining about. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a really big supporter of his project. I think the ecosystem has grown tremendously. And so I'm a very big Avalanche bull. And I know he here is a really big bull on one of his own, which I'm actually starting to support that one too.
Yeah.
But I'll talk about it.
Yeah, well, I'm a big supporter of Cardano. I've been following it since its inception in 2017, and one of the reasons why is, like I said before, it's like the team, they do instead of say. You know, they make the effort to do it right. Like a lot of people get frustrated with the development team, mostly because it takes a long time, but like they're building for the future. You know, it's like I said, like I know that, you know, crypto isn't going away in the next 10 years. It's going to be around for the next 100 until we live in a Star Trek universe. So yeah, so
Until they all learn about UCAT and adopt UCAT, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's, you know, everything. I really like the project because it's, you know, a lot of formal verifications, a lot of, you know, academic research and peer-reviewed papers, and yeah, and recently they entered the Guggen era, which was a launch of smart contracts. So um, right now, people on the Cardano blockchain are building like DeFi applications and, you know, NFT ecosystems, and there's a lot going on. Yeah, it takes a while, but it's worth it in the long run. So
Quick
yeah,
question.
yeah,
Did you say that they finally launched the smart contracts engine for ADA?
yeah.
Oh,
It was basically, I think it was in the last month, like in September. There's still a lot of projects, like there's a few projects running already, but most of the projects that they have yet to launch, because they have a longer development cycle, and a lot of them have been in, you know, development for a long time, and they do a lot of QA. So it's within the next month, like a lot of the DeFi applications will be available. And I'm ready, you know, on the sideline with money to jump in, because like it's, you know, catching, even though I'm kind of like bearish on the overall market, I'm bullish on, you know, new projects that have, you know, good, you know, system behind it, or, you know, good infrastructure. So yeah, I'll have some coin on the sideline to invest in some of those projects. Yeah, and I'm sure like we'll talk about it over the next few months. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot to look out for the coming months.
yeah.
One of the things that I want to definitely focus on is keeping up to date. Well, we're going to try and keep these podcasts coming out regularly
Mhm.
for the most part. If anyone has any type of comments, feedback, suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. We will do our best to try and, you know, get around to everybody. So please be patient with us. There's a lot happening. So we are definitely doing our very best to make sure that we get around to everybody. And in the meantime, I would say we're going to try different formats. We're going to have some guest speakers coming on to talk about their corresponding industries and how blockchain technologies are affecting them and society in general, with, you know, with or without, I should say, with the application or with the lack of the technology, and how it could improve their industries or
Mhm.
their jobs or their current positions, and also even going as far as business practices, ethics,
Yeah.
going into just there's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
It's
There's a
not just
bit,
Please
Yeah,
go.
so we're basically going to paint a vision of the future. It's like, one reason why I dedicated the rest of my career to crypto is that early on I seen the potential for what could be possible. And with a lot of research that me and Alex have done together, like the future could be amazing, and the only way we will get there is if we work really hard to educate people and to build software that we're proud of, and systems that are fair. So like this, podcast, a lot of it is kind of getting our ideas into the mainstream. And I feel like if we do the job correctly, people will be as excited as us, about the future. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that to leave it on a positive note,
Mhm.
that while the majority of the world is scrambling around trying to figure out how to fix the broken system that we're in,
Mm,
the things that I will leave everyone with is saying, stop trying to fix something that's broken
yeah,
and that traditionally has never really actually worked. It was the appearance of working because it worked in certain people's interests or certain groups' interests,
yeah,
but it didn't work overall for the whole of society.
mhm,
So in order for you to really try and grasp of how to make that, how do we fix this system, you can't put a band-aid onto a into a well, right? You can't put a
yeah,
band, you're gonna have to like dump some concrete in there and like get like an excavator and completely like drill a whole new funnel and like create a whole new well, right? A
yeah,
whole new source of water, a whole new source of income.
yeah,
And I mean, the system that we have is broken to the point where you can't fix it.
yeah,
The only way to fix this is to create a whole new system or to implement a whole new system. And
yeah. For me, it's like we live in a post-scarce world. We actually live in a world of abundance, but with scarcity systems. It's like
yes,
the people who control those systems know it, is that we don't know it yet. You know, so
yeah,
so we're trying to get that information out there. So
absolutely. And a perfectly good example of this, so that you guys can understand, is the diamond market. We know diamonds come from Africa, and mostly South Africa. We know that the diamond market is controlled by the diamond suppliers,
mhm,
and the way that what happens when they bring out diamonds from those mines, they just put them into a vault and they hold them, which basically uh, it controls the value of the diamond market.
yeah,
So same concept, just apply that to just about any industry you could think of, and that's
yeah,
probably what's happening.
yeah. But it's carbon. It's like basically the most abundant element in the universe.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Which apparently is running out of, but that's a whole nother.
yeah, yeah. All
So
right.
yeah, we appreciate you guys even listening this much. We're gonna try and keep them fairly short because we know they're packed with information. So if you guys do want to reach out, Manny, what is your social media handle?
On Twitter, I'm manny.mltv. I'll list everything in the description.
Amazing.
Yeah, I believe, like, I haven't looked at it in a while, but like Manny Multiverse on YouTube. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Perfect. And I'm Romero Vinjan,
Mhm.
and you have a question about that, feel free to reach out. Also, I'll leave the information in the detail section below for the video. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm pretty much wrapped up for now, Manny. What do you think?
Yeah, me too. And
Awesome.
have a good night, everyone.
Peace.